Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. Daniel Jones' season might be over. It is feared that he tore his ACL in today's Las Vegas Raiders New York Giants game, where the Giants lose 30-6. So a disastrous season for the Giants only gets worse. Now, going to this game, I think I had mentioned last episode after the loss to the Jets that I was leaning towards rooting against the Giants in this game. But I wanted to give it a chance. Didn't want to completely abandon, the idea of maybe the Giants making some miracle run, but watch some of the 1:00 games, which, wasn't really necessary, but wanted to see how, certain teams looked in competition for that 7th and final wild card spot. And ultimately going to the game, made the confirmed decision, was going to root against them. And not that matters really, but certainly what happened in the game only furthers that point. And I am not one that actually wants Brian Daboll or Joe Schoen to be fired. Whereas, in a bad season like this, it's easy to go there. I'm not as critical on them. I'm actually probably more critical on Schoen than Daboll. I feel like some of his decision-making has been questionable, but certainly not to the point where I would want to go in a different direction. So nothing about that. But Daniel Jones, what is his future now? And again, nothing is confirmed, but all reports sound as if it was a significant knee injury, a non-contact knee injury, which is never what you want to hear, never what you want to see. And it happened the first time he fell down, and I was hoping that he maybe tripped, like Lawrence Cager was in the vicinity, but then once I saw that he just went on his own, that was not good. So that was the last play of the first quarter, and the first play of the second quarter, unimpeded. Like the first play there was some pressure, I think maybe by Max Crosby. The first play of the second quarter just crumbles to the ground. Walked on his own power, with the help of trainers, but in all likelihood his season is done. Tommy DeVito came in the game and had struggles, then looked okay. Let's keep in mind though that this was a lopsided game, so that has something to do with it. Matt Barkley is also on the practice squad, so one of those two are going to start versus the Cowboys next week. With the Raiders, them having the coaching change, Antonio Pierce, former Giant, former Super Bowl winning starting middle linebacker for the Giants. Wow, night and day difference for them. Aiden O'Connell, the rookie, started and looked pretty damn good. The biggest disappointment today was the Giants defense. Did not look good at all. In terms of pressuring O'Connell, in terms of stopping Josh Jacobs, just not much resistance. I guess they held Devontae Adams in check, if you want to give one positive, but part of that was due to the score of the game. So, yeah, like a lot of bad in this. Giants were never in it. It just, it's reminiscent in some ways of some of the early season just blowouts where the Giants don't get anything going. But yeah, so now the Giants are 2-7, and as we speak, they would pick 4th in the NFL draft. So there's a really good chance the Giants are going to end up with a top 5 pick. If you look at everything, you look at the situation, with the quarterback injuries to Jones and to Taylor, yeah, that's very likely. And I keep on looking back to that Arizona game, and I've said it a million times where it's like, if they had just somehow lost that game, you are really locking yourself into, I think, like a top 2 at worst 3 pick. But still a lot of season to go. But if you're a fan that wanted the Giants to have a top pick, today kind of went the way you wanted it to. But I do feel really bad for Daniel Jones, who, look, Daniel Jones is going to be here next season. But I still think that you can still draft a quarterback. Look, it'll be awkward. It'll be weird. But I still think that is what you need to do. Look, Daniel Jones, there's just been a lot of injuries. Forgetting about everything else, the guy gets hurt a lot. And fair or unfair, that's just what it is. So Andrew Thomas returned today. That's the thing. It's like, and that's, I guess, part of the reason why I was unsure in terms of, well, they are kind of, again, Darren Waller is hurt, and he went on IR. He's at least 4 weeks. I feel bad that he wasn't able to face the Raiders. I'm sure he was looking forward to that. Taylor goes on IR. He's at least 4 weeks with a rib injury. But, Andrew Thomas returns. Daniel Jones returns. Evan Neal ends up leaving the game with. Evan Neal left the game with a ankle injury, so we'll see what that leads to. But Really wasn't sure how to feel about this game in terms of where it was going to go, but I had a feeling that the Raiders going from McDaniels to Pierce was going to give them a boost. And the Raiders kind of rode that momentum, the crowd was into it. And that was, look, the Raiders, they are still, look, I don't see them making it in the AFC, but now they're 4-5. Like, they are in the mix now with that win. And the Giants were on the periphery. The only reason why there was even any chance is just because you had that one spot that seemed possible. But look, I think the Giants have just been beaten down, demoralized. It's going to be like where they go from here is going to be interesting. And next week, the Cowboys, as we speak, are a 15.5-point favorite. Like, that's going to be tough. That is going to be tough to stop. And Dallas is playing some pretty good football, despite the fact they lost to the Eagles today. They played well. Dak Prescott's like looking good. We know how the Cowboys have been versus the Giants, so that should be fairly ugly, very ugly, with the fact that it's probably going to be Tommy DeVito or Matt Barkley at quarterback. Statistically, looking at this game, I don't think I'm going to draw a whole lot from it. Honestly, the stats look a lot more even than what was reality, because of the fact that the Raiders, they left the first half up 24-0. There was not much to do. I'm sure if they wanted to do more, they could have, but a couple, Giants who had been getting turnovers. Again, this is why the defense did a poor job. Didn't get any turnovers. The sacks, that I should bring up, 8-0 Raiders in sacks. So another game where the Giants absolutely get sacked like crazy, and DeVito took 6 of those 8 sacks. But, he looked competent by the end of the game. Look, this is not an NFL quarterback in my estimation, but he looked okay. But with that said, there's reasons behind that, and the Giants were down by a lot. Raiders were kind of playing back a bit. So, but yeah, if I had to guess, Tommy DeVito probably is your starter next week. I mean, I can't say with 100% certainty, but it's looking pretty likely. So let's just run through this game quick. Gonna try to keep it brief. But the Giants, they get the ball first, and Jones looked rusty, like all game. Daniel Jones is normally an accurate quarterback. You can say cons and give negative thoughts about him, but he's a generally accurate quarterback, and he just wasn't really in this game. Daniel Bellinger had a 9-yard catch on a 3rd and 10, so it leads to 4th and 1 at their own 29. The Giants might have been trying to draw the Raiders offside, or maybe they would have gone for it. I think more of the former, but it doesn't matter because Evan Neal false starts. So Evan Neal comes back to the lineup and boom, false start. So the Giants punt it away, and the Raiders with a quick 6-play, 67-yard drive. And there was a couple of big plays. Jacoby Myers with a 24-yard catch, and Jacoby Myers again with a 17-yard rushing touchdown. So I believe that was like an end-around play. And again, like the Giants defense, there was nothing going on there. Now look, they traded Leonard Williams, and that has an effect. Leonard Williams being dealt shouldn't have led to this, but it does, speak to the Raider run game looking good, because from what I knew, Jacobs and company really were not doing much this year. In fact, the whole Raider offense struggled. So Myers with that touchdown makes it 7-0. Then the Giants put a drive together that looks halfway decent. Saquon Barkley was decent in this game. What were his numbers? 16 carries? No, yeah, 16 carries for 90 yards. Like, he looked good, considering the fact that we know he's injured and there's not much else around him. I'll give him his credit. So let's see. There was a Jones to Hyatt incompletion where Jones, if he was a little bit more on target, that could have been a touchdown. Hyatt with that speed, but Hyatt was out of bounds, and that was the right call. And then you end up in a situation, 3rd and 3 at the Vegas 36, at the Raiders 36, and Breida for 2, 4th and 1, and the Giants try to do a QB sneak with Daniel Jones, which is interesting because of his neck injury, which he didn't look that comfortable with to begin with, and they get stuffed. No gain. It's just frustrating overall that the Giants cannot get a yard. But also, I understand. But look, Jones, it's just a bad situation. I should also say, offensive line-wise, from left to right, Thomas, Pugh, Schmitz, Bredesen, and Neal. Phillips came in for Neal when he got hurt. Pugh was banged up, but I think finished the game. And so Glowinski, who's actually been good lately, was on the bench. So again, the offensive line is in better shape than it had been, although obviously a lot of sacks against in this one. Maybe part of that was DeVito, but still not great there. But the Raiders go 3 and out on their next drive. Then the Giants, this was the drive that Jones got hurt on. So they get a first down. Darius Slayton with a 6-yard catch. Kind of short plays. Paris Campbell with a 5-yard catch. He was a little bit more involved than he had been. Campbell, that is. But on the last play, Jones is sacked by Max Crosby, and he kind of just, again, it was a non-contact injury. And I was concerned about it. And then he comes out for the second quarter, and he's sacked again. But in this case, he just crumbled to the ground. There was no pressure. It was because he was hurt. And he grabs for his right knee, and so Tommy DeVito comes on. Eventually, the Giants do punt, and so, of course, Daniel Jones would leave the game, not return, and he's probably done for the season. So, Raiders then, they have the ball at their own 10 to start. They get a first down on the first play, but then they do punt it away. But then the Giants go 3 and out with DeVito at the helm. And the Raiders get the ball back, middle of the second quarter, and they put together an 8-play, 65-yard drive, capped off on a 2-yard run by Josh Jacobs, who was the main beneficiary of this drive. It was basically all Jacobs with a little bit of Hunter Renfrow mixed in as well. Then on the Giant drive, down 14-0, after a good Saquon Barkley 26-yard run, Giants had the ball at midfield, down 14, and Tommy DeVito, not a great decision. He goes deep to Hyatt. I think there was double coverage there and picked off by Robertson, and it's brought back to the 40-yard line. So not great there at all by DeVito. Actually, yeah, you know what? It was, not underthrown on that one, actually. So Raiders get the ball back there, and the big play is O'Connell to Tucker for 50 yards. And eventually, it would be Josh Jacobs getting another touchdown, a 1-yard run. And then this was not DeVito's fault, but the first play of the next drive is an interception off of Darius Slayton. Slayton should have made the play. Instead, Nate Hobbs intercepts it. Ball is at the Giant 25. And the Raiders settle for a field goal at the end of the half to take a 24-0 lead at half. And then the Raiders start out the second half with a pretty solid drive that ends in a field goal by Carlson. 46-yard field goal makes it 27-0. Then the Giants go 3 and out, including a sack by Max Crosby. The Raiders then go 3 and out, and the Giants then put together their 1-touchdown drive in the third quarter. DeVito to Slayton for 34 yards was nice. Wan'Dale Robinson, a 12-yard catch. There was a 4th down conversion as well. After a Daniel Bellinger false start in a 4th and 1, Saquon Barkley gets a 6-yard catch to continue the drive. This actually bleeds into the fourth quarter, and Wan'Dale Robinson is left wide open in the end zone for a touchdown. So Wan'Dale gets his first touchdown of the season. It's from Tommy DeVito, so DeVito's first touchdown pass of his young career. And the Giants go for 2, and they were unsuccessful. They tried to do the Philly special, and it was just a total fail. I don't know. It just did not look good. I think they were going to try to have Daniel Bellinger throw it to DeVito. Just not really looking great there. Then the Raiders go 3 and out in the fourth quarter. The Giants then turn it over on downs in a desperation situation, down 27-6. They give the Raiders good field, and so they take a field goal from there, make it 30-6, which would be the final score. And there's really not much else to talk about here. Giants go out and turn the ball over on downs a couple times, and so anyway, Raiders win it 30-6. And again, the story is Daniel Jones, but also, of course, really bad defensive job by Wink Martindale and company, a defense that had really been coming on strong of late as well. So that's what kind of sucks about that. So, Giants now 2-7, one of the worst records in football. And we're going to find out soon, just confirmation that Jones is tore his ACL. That is the expectation. Anything other than that would be a surprise. So Giants will take on their NFC East rival, who they got their ass kicked by in week 1, the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to be a rough second half for the New York Giants. Actually, now I see the Cowboys are favored by 16.5, so it's actually increased. And Tyrod Taylor, if he's back at all, which I guess he will be, it's tough to tell, but he will not be back for the Cowboy game. the Commander game or the Patriot game, and then there's the bye week. So like the earliest you'll see him is against the Packers in week 14, I think. So the Giants have their bye week in week 13. So 3 more games of DeVito or Barkley or whoever else, and that's just, I doubt that leaves. I mean, certainly not versus the Cowboys, and probably, I don't know. You're not going to be favored in Giants might not be favored in any games the rest of the season, because if they're not going to be favored home against the Patriots, then barring something crazy, like maybe if things go off the rails for the Rams, and yeah, like the Giants are going to be an underdog in basically every game they play the rest of the way. So at this point, I hope that they lose as much as possible and end up with a top end pick. It doesn't mean I want clean house. Just if you can acquire as much draft capital as you can. And hey, good news today. Leonard Williams was traded to the Seahawks, so you want the Seahawks to lose as much as possible. Make that a mid-second round pick. Make that second round pick as high as it can possibly go. That's just what it is. And then you hope that they make the right decisions, which, we don't know that's going to be the case. But, I do think that even if this goes completely, if they finish 2-15, barring something absolutely crazy, like off the field or, Shane and Dable aren't going anywhere. And I do agree with that. I feel like in a lot of the times I'm quick to say, hey, let's fire this guy, let's fire that guy. I've made that, whether it be like a Brian Cashman or previous Giants regimes where I've wanted that to happen. Here, not the case. I'm willing to definitely give this a little bit more time. A lot of bad things have happened, but this is last year they went way ahead of schedule, and then this year a lot of things have went terribly wrong. But of course, blame still goes to them as well. But anyway, Giants lose to the Raiders 30-6, and unfortunately, Daniel Jones, it is feared that he tore his ACL, and if that is the case, his season would be over.